What's up, you guys? It's 2Bricks, and coming off of the back of the launch of my very successful Fondor mock, which, and I mean successful in terms of it being very well received by you guys, I really appreciate that. I decided that the next kind of iteration here of the Think Like a Designer series, the next project that we'll focus on, will actually be revisiting the Stinger Mantis, which is another mock. The cannons are missing at the front. I think I had to scrounge them, the parts for something. So please ignore my messed up front section here, but this is yeah, this is a little more accurate. But yeah, so I have pilfered a few parts from this over the years, so if you notice some differences, that's what that is. But ever since I designed the Stinger Mantis, I've been extremely proud of the model, and I think it's one of my better ones that I've ever done, and I'm still extremely pleased with it today. However, there was one major compromise that I made in the design that has haunted me ever since, basically since the moment that I decided to make the compromise, and that is the way that the rotating wing section, not the way that it works, because the functionality is perfect. The wings fold flat, this other wing underneath independently can swing down and around, and then they can go two of them together. This is perfect. But the way that I achieved it was done using essentially a cheat. And what I did was, instead of having a large rotating section of the ship back here, I built a solid simulation of roundness with all of these different degrees of slopes, and then I built in the ability to kind of move the wings by including a bunch of hollow channels here where the wings can move around as they need to. And there were two major reasons why I did that. Firstly, I didn't really see a good way to have the front and back sections of the ship be able to be connected down the middle and have something rotating around that central base using the currently existing Lego parts. I just couldn't figure out a way to do that safely, I guess, and having the structural integrity that I demand from my models. So that was number one, and number two was just for ease of, for people to be able to put it together easily and not get lost and not get confused. I just thought that having a more simplified, pared down solution would be the way to go. So ever since I made that decision, I have wanted to try to figure out a way to accurately replicate the very elegant, beautiful, rotating cylinders that there's two cylinders that move opposite one another, and it's really intricate and beautiful and fascinating. And that's just something I've wanted to try to capture and to put into my model. So that is going to be what I'm going to try to focus on here. And also, while I'm at it, I'm going to revisit the interior. I'm going to revisit the wings and try to use like all of the newer parts and things that are available to me, taking the feedback that people gave me over the years about certain elements of the design that they didn't like, and basically try to create a new ultimate version of the Stinger Mantis for you guys. So that is the goal of this series. I hope that I can succeed, and we're going to see. I'm off to a pretty good start, but you never know how far in the design process you're going to get before you realize you made a catastrophic error and you have to start over or scrap the whole thing. So I'm taking a risk. Hopefully, I haven't gotten it all figured out yet, but hopefully it's going to come together. And yeah, you guys are gonna like the end result. So the other thing that I would like to do here is rework the back landing gear, because while it works very effectively to hold the model up, I think it's a little bit flimsy and it's also in the wrong position. The back gear should be right underneath this central wing, and I think that I have a solution to be able to achieve that as well. So yeah, lots and lots to discuss. I have a prototype rotating engine section to show you, so we're going to get into that in a second. I'm going to kind of break it down and explain exactly how I arrived at that solution and what are the current problems that I'm now facing that I'm going to try to eliminate as we go forward. So very exciting. Let's get in there and take a look. And the last note before we do that, the revamped Stinger Mantis, for those of you who've very kindly been purchasing the instructions over the last 2.5 or 3 years, however long it's been out, I really appreciate that. And I will be offering this revamped version up for free to those who have purchased the original. I'm simply going to add the instructions to the original posting, in addition to posting this as a new mock, kind of labeling it version 2. But those of you who've already bought version 1 will not be left out in the cold. Of course, you will have to buy additional parts and things for the revamp if you want to convert yours, but yeah, that's a discussion for another day. But I just wanted you guys to know that when I do change things, I don't do it lightly, because I know that for those of you who have been buying things, I want to make sure that you don't feel like you're getting cheated. So that's kind of my solution for that. Hopefully you guys think it's a cool way to go about doing it. So, all right, without any more chat, let's get into looking at the actual prototype for the redesigned wing rotating section. All right, so these are the main parts here that I'm kind of working with as the basis for the new wing rotating section. And this is what allows it all to kind of come together. And really, I think it was when I was putting together my General Grievous's wheel bike a couple of months ago. Make sure you check out the full video review of that down on my channel. Just look for General Grievous wheel bike and you'll find it. That one's very cool. But yeah, I was kind of toying with a way to have a fully rotating, self-contained section for the bike wheel. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking about ways to apply that to the Stinger Mantis. This is kind of what has allowed me to think about it. So basically, the ability to flatten off these sections right here with these curved macaroni tiles, that allows me to build a full circle, which I can then flatten off on the front and on the back, because these already are not flat, but able to sit up against a flat surface without any problem. That allows me to have two rotating sections built of these circular pieces that can move against one another and be kind of butted up against each other. So that's what's really important. I couldn't have figured this out without the existence of these tiles, so that's really cool. And then these pieces right here, they obviously allow for the larger radius of circle to move freely around the edge of them, but they also come with the added benefit of having a hole in the middle, or I guess a half hole. And when you put them together, you get exactly the right amount of space to put a 2-wide Technic beam right the way through the middle. And it has, I believe it is a 2-wide Technic beam, so 2 Technic bricks stacked side by side, and then a plate and a tile on top and bottom fits exactly into this space. And so what that allows me to do is create a solid spine that runs from the front of the ship through to the back, connecting them together, which is the first problem that I had initially when designing this. So that solves that problem. And then we have this central kind of rounded base that will sit very, very strongly and sturdily attached to that spine, which will then have a rotating section around it that the wings themselves will be attached to. So that was the thinking. And then after probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks, I don't know exactly how long, of tinkering around, I was able to prototype a design based off of that, just those pieces and that kind of design philosophy. And so what I'm going to do today is take this apart and kind of build it up again and show you in sections what I did and how I arrived at this first stage towards a solution to figure out this very, very complicated problem. So let's get into that section of the video now. Okay, so these are all of the different elements that I kind of have at play. There's some stuff a little bit off camera here, but I'm going to be basically going through, putting everything back together and explain to you how I arrived at this thing right here. So starting with this is the core that allows for the rotating sections to freely move around the edge. And so explaining, or kind of what I explained before, I wanted to have these pieces here that have the hole in them be able to fit over a Technic frame that would, or spine that would run right the way through, that allows me to build on front and back whilst still maintaining this very, very solid core in the middle. So the kind of radiator-like design that I ended up going with for this is for a very important reason. So this is kind of the finishing part right here. I just wanted to show you the thing disassembled. So the reason that I went with this design is A, it reduces the amount of friction on the rotating sections. So having this be fully solid, I was just finding that it was a little bit of a pain to rotate the parts around because there was just so much friction in there. So doing it this way minimizes the surface contact from the outer wheels to this part right here. And also it saves on parts because you don't have to buy just quite so many of these half round tile or plate pieces right here, which I believe are a little bit on the more pricey side when compared to like regular, just regular 1x2 and 1x4 plates, which are sandwiched in between them to keep them spaced out. So the next reason, or the next thing that I did here that was important to the design is having these gaps. And the reason that these gaps are here is because I needed to be able to secure this in place. So basically, the entire design, let me pop this part off again. So the entire design is secured in via these, can I take this off easily? Let me see. Peel off a couple more layers here to show you guys. I haven't actually disassembled this since I assembled it, so it's a little bit of a tricky thing. Okay, cool. So yeah, the way that I'm attaching these in here is I have these bricks, the modified bricks with the 4 studs on the back. So those are attached back here to be able to act as the primary attachment point. So this whole thing comes back and it slides onto and it connects to these top and bottom. So you have 4 studs top and bottom holding this in place using these bricks that are oriented like so, right? Then as you go a little bit further down, I introduce one of these sideways, and then that is acting as kind of a brace into the frame here to connect it not only at the back but in the middle as well, so that it kind of basically increases the strength dramatically to have it oriented this way. I'm not really explaining it super well, but basically, even though these aren't actually studded in, these bricks right here, you can see I have tiles, and it's just kind of placing it against the underside of the frame here. I could have actually studded these in, but I chose not to because it's kind of an illegal technique, because you would be putting something in that you can't actually remove once it's in place. You kind of have to force it in there, and then once it's in, it's just like locked forever. So basically, I wanted to have these pieces be in here as a kind of a buffer that holds it in against the frame. And then the best way that I found to do that is to attach tiles onto the underside of these and then brace it in here with a plate that comes up against this and kind of holds it in there as if it's almost as if it's studded in, because it can't go anywhere. And that just adds a whole bunch of extra strength and stability to this design. And so those 2 little gaps right there are super essential to being able to make this, like, there's no flex or anything like that. This is a rock solid piece, which is what we need, because everything, the wings, the weight of all of that, the wings on the top and coming out of the side, and the landing gear are all going to be supported by this central core here. So that was super important. So then we have the sleeve here that fits around this central section. And like you saw before, those are done with those the 4x4 corner round macaroni bricks here, which are then built up into a circle that is designed to be able to freely rotate around this section here. And the reason that this is shaped the way that it is because I need 2 different size circles to be able to move independently of one another around that central section, because the top wing has to be able to fold down, the side wing has to be able to also fold down, and they have to be able to both rotate together as well. So it's a really, really interesting and dynamic shape that's required, and the motion is very, very intricate. So it called for a lot of very, very specialist designing for these kind of sleeve collar thingies here that go around the edge. And so basically what I have is it's tiled off on the front here, like I was explaining before, so that those can sit up against one another and rotate freely without catching on any studs. And then on the back here, you can see I'm using these bracket pieces to hold each of the 4 sections together, or each of the bricks. And those stay in place pretty nicely, especially once you introduce the central core here, and then also buttress it up against this part. And then front and back, we brace it in as well. So this all holds together very, very nicely. The only thing that I would like to try to get away from and try to see if I can do differently is to kind of flesh out the rounded parts around the edge here. I'm using these hinged sections here, which have curved slopes on them. And it looks great, and it really, really fills out the circular look and feel. And once it's in place, you'll really, see and appreciate that. I just realized this was in the wrong place the whole time. There you go. And yeah, that's something that looks awesome, but I'm concerned about the overall stability long term of using these clips for such a central section of the build that's going to be rotating a lot. They don't have to take any weight or anything, but I'm just worried about the durability that, over time these could lose clutch. And like this one already is beginning to do. This is an older piece that I have here. They start to become loose, and you're going to have these kind of sections that might flop up and down, which is not ideal. The rest are all held in there very nicely because they're newer parts, but I'm going to look for a way that I can potentially use this stud or the one underneath to attach a bracket, like a 1x1 bracket, at a 45-degree angle, and maybe find a way to anchor these parts in that way, but we'll see how that works out. So yeah, that's problem number one, is that I would like to eliminate the need for these clip and bar pieces to hold all of these outer bits in place like they are doing currently. So let me go ahead and place this on to the core here so we can get a look and start to see the full functionality. So this goes on all the way down, and then the middle section here, which will contain the anchor point for the top wing, goes on next. And then we slip on the front part right here and then clip that together. So then I'm holding, bracing these parts top and bottom with some 2x10 plates here and here. And these just click into all of these brackets that are sandwiched into the structure all the way through and make this very nice and rigid and strong. And so now the two sections are held in place and they can't go anywhere, like so. So that's really great. So then the next thing that I have to worry about is how now do I build from this tiny little connection point forward to the whole rest of the ship. So that's the next part that I had to figure out, and I'll show you right now. So using a very similar technique to what I did for the Fondor, I built this frame that is designed to sit around the spine here. So let me just pop that off and I'll put it in place. So that goes right there on the top. So it's just holding in the couple of studs there on the bottom and the top, each of these sections of the frame. And then, oops, sorry, once I get this in place, it's a little fiddly to do on camera. There we go. Then we're using these Technic pins right here to use these lovely little lift arms to hold in the top and bottom parts, sandwiching them so that they cannot move up and down any longer, and holding it in place super duper sturdily, where this frame it's impossible for this spine to be able to escape from this section now. So that is fully, excuse the janky motion, I have to test the back section. But this is fully locked in and very, very, very sturdy, and I can build the whole rest of the ship off of this with no problems at all. So I just built a little temporary shaping up here to kind of show you guys roughly where this is on the model, and then I just have a little indication of what would be the new floor continuing off of the bottom of this. So then we move around to the back side, and so the reason that this was not moving is because currently there's nothing flat up against this holding it in place. So let me change that really quick. So I designed these little panels right here to click in to the available studs here in the back, like so. So those are clicking into the backside of these parts that are in the central section, and the studs are not touching these outer rings because obviously those need to be free to move. And then I just built a little bit of extra frame around here. So I have top and bottom sections just like before. And then I'm using these longer Technic pins to clip in right into that frame, like so. And then I have the shorter black ones in here in the center as well. And then I just go ahead and once again attach these bracing parts right here. These very, very useful Technic elements. That goes there, and that goes there. And so now what we have is the spine is completely sandwiched in by these very, very strong Technic structures on either side, unable to go anywhere at all. And I just have this little top bit of sloped cowling here. And so that just kind of completes the shape. And the reason that I just finished that out with this temporary shape here is because when this is rotating, it really wants to have the flat, as much as possible, the flat structure on either side, pinching it in place and keeping it aligned so that there's no room for it to wiggle whatsoever. So what we are now left with, let me actually adjust the camera angle up a little bit. There we go. So what we now have is this section can move down on its own completely while maintaining that round shape that I love. And then this section here is free to rotate in the middle. So perfect. Another thing that I didn't show you guys yet that I was tinkering around with is the ability to, like I was mentioning before with the landing gear, to centralize the landing gear here into the middle of this circular portion underneath the central wing. So I've just gone ahead and roughed in what it could be like if I used a couple of these fingered hinge, or not fingered hinge, sorry, these ratcheting hinge parts, and I just built some landing gear that could theoretically open up from the underside of the rotating section, and that is what that looks like right there. So, you know, you can see right now it's holding up this fairly heavy structure, but I don't at all trust this to hold up the entire ship. It's simply not going to be strong enough, but I did want to try to experiment with a way to integrate the landing gear properly into the central rotating section like it is in the ship. But the amount of cheating that they must have had to do for the ship, I mean, I've looked at it, and I just feel like there just is not a way to tuck that amount of landing gear up into this interior section here, especially if we're to believe that crew can walk down a tunnel that goes through this section right here. It's just simply not possible. So I'm going to have to, again, take some cheats and liberties and figure out a way to, especially if, you know, we're doing a Lego translation here, to have this be stable enough that it can hold up the entire ship. There may be some sort of a folding support rod or something that we add after the fact to just brace this section in here so that, you know, when the weight is on it, there's something to take that weight and distribute it into the larger section of the ship here in the center. I don't know yet. I'm figuring that out as we go. So then the other problem that I'm faced with is in the Stinger Mantis as it currently is, there's a little switch that you can pull back here that releases basically a pin that is going into the wings that keeps it in place, and that will release the wings so that they can move. And then when you know, you engage it again, it locks them in place so that they sit at this angle, like you see here, for display. That's what you want. Otherwise, this bottom wing will just flop down. This top wing could just be, you know, can just rotate itself down. Well, the landing gear's out right now. But that's obviously going to be something that's a little bit of an issue. So it's something that I want to solve very, very badly. And that's something I'm working on. So that's another kind of element here. With this being a free-floating structure, the question of how to actually pin those wings in place is a big one that is on my mind. So we'll see. Currently, this is all very sturdy, but there is the ability for me to redesign some of this section to be able to incorporate something that can come in and just block some little section of the wings. I'm thinking about adding in an element on the top here. So say I don't have this, let's see if I can peel this off real quick. So say I don't have this cowling section here in the back. Say I remove one of these, like so. And then I just have a little gap under here, right? And I can basically redesign this section a little bit so that I can incorporate a Technic brick in there with a hole. And then that basically will allow me to, let me grab a brick separator. The thinking is I would slightly modify this section of the thing, very technical. This section of the rotating collar here would be redesigned so that I can have basically a Technic brick here that I can then plug a rod or something into, and then that would you know, be able to basically recreate the switch mechanism that I had before, and you know, we'll figure that out somewhere along the way. But I don't want to impact the look too much of the nice round feeling of this, because that is the whole point of me redesigning it, is to get that nice rounded feel in here. So hopefully I can come up with a solution that will work, and if I can't, well, then I just can't. But you know, design, especially with Lego, is all about interpretation and compromise. So when things just simply can't be figured out the way that you want them to be, you just have to think of an alternate solution. That's kind of the point of and the fun of doing Lego building. So the plan is to take this section right here, which is currently 2 bricks thick, and then also there's the additional thickness back here, thin that out so that the wings can then be nice and thin coming out of here and also coming out of this section. This is all just temporary right now. I just have some bricks stacked up in here to get the height so that I can pin them on either side. But yeah, that's something that will be changing as well. And then yeah, then I just have to figure out how to integrate this with the new kind of back side of the ship. And what's cool about this is that even though it actually looks so complicated and dense, it's actually going to be lighter in parts, I think, than the current setup that I have, because there's so much brick densely packed into this area of the other Stinger Mantis to keep this secure, because there is no central spine on that one. There is kind of building that comes along, goes down around the other side, and sort of wraps around the areas that are open in order to secure the front and the back to each other. And there's just there's a ton of parts that go into that, and hopefully this will actually end up being a little bit of a cheaper solution overall. But it depends on the cost of the Technic elements and things of that sort as well. So who knows? I'm not that familiar with the cost of second-hand Lego parts to be able to tell you exactly, but I have a hunch that this will end up being fairly parts economical, or economical on your wallet, not on the parts. But yeah, I don't know, we'll see. But really what's important to me is nailing down the design, getting all of the features in here that I want, getting the stability that I want, and having it work out as a model. So yeah. Oh, the other thing is I need to figure out a way to limit the motion so that this wing, the side wing, stops here and then stops down here when it gets to the bottom and doesn't go any further than that. And I have to figure out an elegant way to limit that motion without just building a bunch of extra stuff. Hopefully just not having to build a bunch of extra stuff that sticks out from the ship and kind of interferes with it, like just acts as a barrier. But right now I don't really know of a good way to do that. So that's another interesting challenge that I'll be facing in the coming episodes. Hopefully I'll have a solution for you. So yeah, we'll see. Obviously everything here is temp and is subject to change, and probably will change a bunch of times before I'm finished. But as to this being a good kind of starting point, I'm very happy with where it's at right now. It's very, very complicated, but then so is the Stinger Mantis. And thanks a bunch for doing this to us, video game designers. You really did a number on us with this one. Maybe that's why Lego never gave us an official set still all these years later, because they looked at it and then just said, nope, we're not doing that. So who knows? All right, so yeah, updates for this to come. Obviously, I wanted to kick off the new year. I know it's not quite the new year yet, but I wanted to give you guys a little preview of the kind of crazy stuff I'm going to be tackling in January. There's a lot more to come, and hopefully you guys will be along for the ride in 2023, and it's going to be the best year ever, at least for 2 Bricks. I know it's going to be our best year ever. I say our, it's me, it's my channel. I'm the only one here. There's no one else behind the scenes. So yeah, Happy New Year to all of my lovely subscribers. Thank you guys so much for all of the engagement that you've given me over the past years, but also specifically ever since the Fondor came out. I've seen a nice spike in growth there, and that's been very, very lovely to see. So to all of you folks who are new and tuning in and seeing what's next, I really appreciate you being here. And yeah, let's go ahead and kick 2023's ass. All right, guys, I'm going to see you on the next video. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, sharing with your friends, leaving a comment, and all of that good YouTube stuff. You guys know that it helps a ton, and I'll see you in the next video. May the force be with you.